Hello, and welcome to Hour 2 of America Talks Live. Before we get to our first guest this hour, Klayman, here are this hour's top stories. President Trump is preparing to leave for Saudi Arabia, where he will meet with King Salman on his first overseas trip as president. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein addressed this House today behind closed doors on the status of the probe into the president's alleged ties to Russia, where he said he firmly stands by his memo outlining former FBI Director Jim Comey's offenses. Rod Rosenstein appointed special counsel Robert Mueller to the investigation earlier this week. A friend of James Comey sat down with PBS NewsHour to set the record straight about the infamous hug between Comey and the president back in February.
Comey was just completely disgusted by the episode. He thought it was an intentional attempt to compromise him in public.
Very interesting. Comey's friend also shared why he thinks the president fired Comey.
Trump fired Jim Comey because the most dangerous thing in the world, if you're Donald Trump, is a person who tells the truth.
Well, the friend also said Comey's concerned with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein because he says no one can survive in Washington as long as he has without making compromises. Very nice. Former Senator Joe Lieberman is the president's top pick to replace Jim Comey as FBI director. Democrats are not enthusiastic about the pick. They think the position should go to someone who is free from politics. The president is supposed to announce his official appointment soon. And former Congressman Anthony Weiner pleaded guilty today to sexting a 15-year-old girl last year. New York Times reports the charge carries a maximum 10-year sentence. For more on these stories, visit Newsmax.com. Well, joining me now is Larry Klayman. He's former federal prosecutor. He is the founder of Freedom Watch. President Trump, at the joint press conference with Colombia's president yesterday, gave his opinion on the appointment of a special counsel to investigate ties between his campaign and Russia. This is what he had to say.
The entire thing has been a witch hunt, and there is no collusion between certainly myself and my campaign, but I can always speak for myself and the Russians, zero. I think it divides the country. I think we have a very divided country because of that and many other things. So I can tell you that we want to bring this great country of ours together, John. And I will also say very strongly, we've had tremendous success.
All right. Sorry to rush right into that piece of sound, Larry. Welcome. Glad to have you on the show. Good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
So let's talk about Comey. The president yesterday, you heard what he had to say. What are your thoughts on what's going on in Washington now?
What we've seen here in the last week is an unprecedented display, not just of the vile ultra-leftists of the Democrat Party who want to destroy Trump. That was to be predicted. But we've seen the Brutuses in the Republican establishment stab the president in the back, whether it's John McCain, that hateful, in my view, senile individual that actually called this Watergate, and whether we have other Republicans like Speaker Paul Ryan, who covet perhaps running for president next time. There's a concerted effort by the hacks in both political parties to bring the president down. And it's obvious at that press conference, if you look at his demeanor, he was shaken yesterday. But he's a tough guy. He's got to fight back. He's got to do what he has to do. Now, the appointment of Robert Mueller as independent counsel probably helps him in the long run, because Mueller's going to take evidence off the market. You know, I went through this when I was running Judicial Watch with Ken Starr and Robert Ray, independent counsels at the time. It became more difficult to get evidence because it was under secret seal with the grand jury. So this may in the long run benefit him. And there's an important thing he said during that press conference. He says, I know for myself that there's been no collusion. He didn't vouch for others at the time. And even if there was collusion, it wasn't a crime in all likelihood. So this type of thing needs to not sway the president. He needs to move on. He needs to soldier on. Frankly, he should forget about Congress, pass tax reform, use his executive authority, not like Obama did, but do it in a legal way. Appoint good judges so we have better judges on the bench and more conservatives, because right now we've got 70 to 80% leftists on the bench. That's why he's losing in court. And just basically put his head down, go back into the Coliseum and legally slay his opponents.
Well, it's interesting. Let's talk about Jim Comey for a little bit here. We know that there is an alleged memo that was written back in February. We're going to assume it exists for purposes of this conversation, but what we don't know is what it says. We have no context for any of the comments that have been reported from this rumored memo. We don't know what, in fact, actually FBI Director Comey wrote at the time. We only know he kept it a secret. So one could infer he didn't think there was any violation of the law that went on, if there anything untoward happened in that meeting with the president. Then we have other further evidence, and I want to play this piece of sound. It is soundbite number 4. It's Comey testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee back at the beginning of May, where he is asked whether he's had senior officials request that he either stop or interfere with ongoing investigations. Let's hear his response.
If the Attorney General or senior officials at the Department of Justice opposes a specific investigation, can they halt that FBI investigation?
In theory, yes.
Has it happened?
Not in my experience, because it would be a big deal to tell the FBI to stop doing something that without an appropriate purpose. I mean, oftentimes they give us opinions that we don't see a case there, and so you ought to stop investing resources in it. But I'm talking about a situation where we were told to stop something for a political reason. That would be a very big deal. It's not happened in my experience.
Well, that seems to put the end of the story there, Larry. But it doesn't.
Let's cut to the core here, Bill. I believe that what Comey did was to create this alleged memorandum after the fact and backdated it. I see this all the time in government when we file Freedom of Information Act requests, things that pop up that never existed at the time, only to justify positions in court. Comey is not an honest man. As I said the last time I was on your show, he's obstructed justice by not allowing into an investigation into mass surveillance of Trump and others. As set forth by Dennis Montgomery, a whistleblower I brought forward to the FBI over 2 years ago under immunity. He's not an honest man. So to take it hook, line, and sinker, and to have these Republicans, as I said, these Brutuses trying to stab Caesar in the back, Trump, frankly, was outrageous, because Comey's credibility at this point is zero.
Well, and we should point out, by the way, that Legal Watch is either preparing to file or has already filed suit against Mr. Comey for surveilling you, as a matter of fact. Am I correct?
That's correct. And we're filing a new suit next week because 3 times in the last few months, my cell phone has been hacked. I went to Verizon 3 times. They said, we've never seen this phenomenon, so to speak, before. It's clear that the FBI, the CIA, or the NSA are into my phone, probably my associates' phones. Dennis Montgomery himself, they've tried to hack his computer. There's no bounds here. This is an Orwellian police state, and that's why the intel committees on Capitol Hill are so pliant, because they're worried stuff's going to fly out of the files concerning them. You know, Anthony Weiner, as you pointed out, just got convicted today of sending dick pics, excuse the language, to minors.
Yeah.
But God knows what some of these other congressmen have done, and they don't want to have the same fate. So basically, they've been blackmailed into not getting into the Dennis Montgomery story, and they've been blackmailed, frankly, into supporting the Democrats who are seeking to impeach the President of the United States. It's a disgrace. The Republican establishment is an absolute disgrace, and frankly, they should be thrown out on their tails legally in court.
Well, you know, this takes us back to the conversation that you and I had last time you were on the show, where I asked you, why are we not, the people, why isn't Congress, why isn't the media more interested in these alleged incidences of surveillance? There's yours. There's Senator Rand Paul, who has come forward saying he was surveilled. He knows of other congressmen who were, in fact, surveilled. We know for a fact that the IRS under Lois Lerner and Obama surveilled the Tea Party groups. We know that there has been a mass surveillance of the American people going on, and we're learning about it as we learn about citizens who were unmasked in the course of surveillance of other officials. Why isn't there a greater outrage? Larry, what you're talking about is something profound and disturbing and upsetting to the very bedrock of our republic.
But watch what happens this week, Bill. You know, President Trump was accused of disclosing classified information to the Russian ambassador last week. How did that get out? Was it the FBI, NSA, CIA that were in fact surveilling the White House? Most likely. Now, he's going overseas this week. He's going to Saudi Arabia and Israel. We know that the deep state, which still is predominantly stocked with Obama appointees, literally hates Israel. They've done everything they can to destroy Israel in the last 8 years. Watch what flies out this week about the president's communications with Prime Minister Netanyahu and others in the Holy Land. Because he can't do business. I can't do business as a lawyer with my clients. Everything is surveilled. I have to, in fact, meet with them in person. And now I know they're into my cell phone. They can turn on my TV. We found that out through WikiLeaks. This country is in deep trouble. There's a higher force than even the President of the United States. They do the bidding of various interests. They probably line their pockets in exchange for that. It's power. And this is an Orwellian state, as Judge Richard Leon ruled in 2 cases, which I brought in 2013 and 2014. You can see that at freedomwatchusa.org. This is the biggest scandal in American history. Nothing comes close. It's not just a question of unmasking information about Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. That's bad enough. That was a crime. But it's a wholesale effort to destroy anyone who challenges the government. And we live now in a world, not just an Orwellian world, but a world forecast by Ayn Rand in Atlas Shrugged. Yeah. And this country is going to have to be deconstructed and built back up again in the image of our founding fathers.
It is profound, and I would urge the folks who are alarmed by what Larry has to say, go check out the Legal Watch website, get in touch with them, and freedomwatchusa.org is where you should go check these out. Larry, out of time, but it's always a real revelation having you visit. Thanks so much for being here.
God bless. Well, and thank you to you for allowing this information to get out to the American public. Most talk show hosts on most networks, not Newsmax, are afraid to discuss this.
Well, we're going to talk about it more coming up next. Have you ever forgotten a person's name? Where you parked your car? Well, episodes like this should not be dismissed, according to Dr. Gary Small, one of the nation's leading experts on brain health, who says most age-related memory issues are normal, but some can be a warning sign of future cognitive decline. A New York Times best-selling author, Dr. Small, has developed a free online memory test that can help you determine the state of your memory and what you can do to improve it. Just go to memoryrate411.com. That's memoryrate411.com. Take the test and learn more today.